Hello, my name is Kathy Alkane. I'm Senior Manager of Programs and Interpretation at Maymont. Welcome to the next virtual tour. Today, we're going to be looking at the dining room and learning about the entertaining in the house. The Dooleys lived at Maymont from 1893 through the 1920s when they both passed away. When they passed away, they gave away their house, the furnishings, and the 100 acres to the city of Richmond so that everyone could enjoy the museum and park. We don't know how the Dooleys actually decorated the dining room table for their dinner parties, but we do our research through period journals and books about formal dining. Here in the dining room, this is where the Dooleys are going to eat most of their main meals. Historically, the dining room becomes a symbol for entertaining, status, good manners, and social grace. To be given an invitation to a dinner party at the Dooleys must have been a coveted invitation. When we see the table set like this, let's think about the people who are behind the scenes. Who is making this room shine? Who is pressing the tablecloth? Who's creating the delicious food? And who's bringing the food into the room and then back out again? The maids like Rosa Jones and Hannah Walker would have made sure that the room is in top form. They would have ironed the tablecloth to be perfect, and they would have cleaned the room just spotlessly. Rosa Jones would have been working in the maid's room along with Hannah Walker, and Hannah Walker would have been assisting Rosa Jones, but also assisting her mother, Frances Walker, who was the cook in the house. Mrs. Walker would have been in the kitchen preparing all of the food for this multi-course dinner. She was known for her French cooking, and she was actually sought after for her skills. Mr. Dilworth, the butler, would have had complete control over the dinner party, along with his staff, Justin Sims, the under-butler. In the butler's pantry, they would have received Mrs. Walker's cooking from the basement and plated it. Mr. Dilworth would receive all of the food through the dumbwaiter. The other end of the dumbwaiter is in the basement, near the kitchen. Mrs. Walker would send the food up, and then Mr. Dilworth would receive the food. Then they would bring the food out to the dining room, course by course. In between courses, Mr. Dilworth would talk to the kitchen with the speaking tube. Mr. Dilworth would talk into the speaking tube, and Mrs. Walker in the basement in her kitchen could actually hear Mr. Dilworth talking. She would talk back, and he would listen. Let's look at a few pieces that are of interest. In this china cabinet, you can see a variety of different pieces of china, and this all comes from the Rutherford B. Hayes china. Rutherford B. Hayes was President of the United States from 1877 to 1881. While President, he ordered a new set of china for the White House, and he wanted to display the plants and animals of the United States. Rutherford B. Hayes and his wife Lucy hired the artist Theodore Davis to oversee and to create all of the different depictions that were going on each of the plates. So if you look at the oyster plate or the soup bowls or the fish plates, all of the plates have a different design on them. And the plates themselves have their own design, so it's a very unconventional set of china. Because each plate within the entire set of china is basically a one-of-a-kind piece, it was a very expensive set of china. Haviland, the company that made the china, made additional sets for sale to offset the cost of the White House china. The Dooleys purchased one of those sets, and they had them on display in their dining room. We don't see a lot of wear and tear on the china, so we think that for most cases they had the china in their china cabinets. The china cabinet that's holding all of this china was made by an artist named Jean-Paul Mazeraz. He was a French cabinet maker, and he made this 13-foot cabinet for the 1855 Paris Exposition. Another interesting piece that we have in the dining room is this marble sculpture called The Birth of Wine by Francesco Gracia from 1661. The Dooleys purchased this in a 1910 trip to Italy. When Mr. Dooley purchased this piece in Rome, he thought he was getting a sculpture by the Renaissance master Gian Lorenzo Bernini. However, in the 1970s, we had scholars look at the piece, and they deemed that it was actually by a lesser-known artist, Gracia. The title of this piece is called The Birth of Wine, and that totally makes sense to have this subject matter in the dining room setting. In here, we have references to Bacchus, the god of wine. Here you have a panther, which is a symbol for Bacchus. You have Pan, who is the satyr, who is also associated with Bacchus. And you have this woman here who's turning into a grapevine, and she is a personification of wine. So now we've seen what the staff have done behind the scenes to put on this dinner party. It's almost like a performance as they're bringing in food, presenting it to the Dooleys and their guests. And you can imagine how the guests would have been impressed by the Dooleys in this beautiful dining room. Thank you for watching this virtual tour of the dining room of Maymont Mansion. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon.